Good morning, I'm Kenzie and welcome to Dragontrek. Today is day 17 and as you can see, this is not what you expect. I woke up before 5 o'clock in the morning as I had intended to get an early start on my hike from Rock Gap Shelter to Winding Stair Gap and then get into a hostel in Franklin. In my case, I would be Onwards Hostel. I started packing things up. I deflated my sleeping pad and I was not feeling well. So I went back to bed and rested only on my sitting pad, which was about this long, and I had beneath my sleeping pad since I was sleeping in the shelter. I tried to sleep and I got up with everyone else, well, as people in the shelter started getting up. There were 3 other hikers in particular in the shelter. They were not supposed to sleep in that shelter that night because they were going into Onward a day later than me. But they had changed their minds and they were had arrived in the shelter late the day before, which will turn out to be a godsend. I started packing up again, told everybody I was feeling ill, and I made breakfast, but I couldn't eat. I didn't have an appetite. I did not feel well. I did not want to hike the 4 miles to Winding Stair Gap where I was going to be picked up. But I had to because there was no other choice. Until I remembered that they also pick up at Rock Gap, which was only a 0.2 mile hike. And I felt better about that. Having put everything away and ready to start hiking, one of these 3 hikers told me that she was going to hike with me to Rock Gap, and I got there. I was not feeling well, did not have good balance, so it was a good thing that she was with me, and thank you for that. As normal, I'm not going to name any names for their privacy's sake, and expected the car to be there in 5 to 10 minutes. It was. I told them who I was and that I was going to be picked up from Winding Stair Gap, and asked them if they could pick me up there instead, which they did. The hiker that was with me had waited there with me, and she told them that I was feeling ill. Oh, and before that, there had been a different shuttle driver there who offered me bottled water, and on her insistence I took it. I was carrying water on my own, obviously, but she was worried that my filter had been compromised and that water in those bottles had been compromised too as a consequence. I went into Onwards Hostel, not feeling good. The only thing I could think of that day was to go home. That's how bad it was. On day 18, I was feeling better. I went with the group to the pancake breakfast that the church, it was the First Baptist Church or something in Franklin, has. I ate normally, everything felt fine, but one thing had changed. The first 16 days, all I could think about was Katahdin. I was going onward to Katahdin, even climbing Albert Mountain, which was the worst day, and it was climbing in parts, not hiking, climbing. It was exhausting. it was not a good experience for me. It required a lot, not what I had expected. Well, I expected things to be hard and difficult, but I did not expect climbing. And even when I climbed Albert Mountain, I was laughing, I was in a good mood. I would not let the difficult or the hard stop me. I was going to Katahdin, and that was my only goal. When I felt well again, I no longer had that drive. I no longer had that desire. I was no longer Katahdin focused. I needed to make a decision if I was continuing or if I was going home. The day before, another hiker said never quit on a bad day. Well, a couple of people had told me that, and I didn't. I thought about it, and things led to not continuing. It was suggested to me that I should slack pack the 4 miles from Rock Gap Shelter to Winding Stair Gap, and I wanted to do that. But there was no room in Onwards Hostel, there was no room at Chica and Sunsets. Slack packing, unfortunately, was not an option, so I couldn't test to see if that would have rekindled my desire to reach Katahdin. So I set up a shuttle to take me back to Atlanta. And now, just to look in my notes to give you the right information, I contacted Ron Brown, going from Franklin to Sandy Springs. His price was $175, but he was not available on the day that I wanted to go. I talked to the further shuttle, and despite the fact that I wanted to go to Sandy Springs to save money, he insisted to take me to Atlanta Airport for $250. And as he wasn't listening to me and what I wanted, the vibes I got from him were not good. I really didn't want to ride with him, and he never explicitly said that he was available the day that I wanted to go. Then I talked to Brian the Dude and Bobby the Greek, who were available, and they would drive me to Sandy Springs for $250. But on Friday, after a second pancake breakfast, they have really good breakfast. So if you're in Franklin, make sure you take advantage. It's free. And we drove all the way from Franklin to Sandy Springs. Most of the time traffic flowed well, but the closer we came to Atlanta, the worse traffic got. So far so good, right? Normally, when you're taking your time and you're buying airline tickets way ahead into the future, it is possible to travel between Atlanta and Sweden in less than 10 hours. I've done that. Currently, if you want a 12-hour flight, that'll cost you about $2,000. And that's before you pay for your seats, pay for your insurance, pay for your checked bag, and all the other costs, which might end up somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500. Normally I could spend, the first number would be around 10. If you want a flight for that price, right now the trip would take 30, 40, or 50 hours, which is insane. That would be if I had flown out on Saturday. So I added 2 more days to my hotel stay here in Atlanta. Found a flight on Monday that started at $1,000, ended up at $1,400, and the trip would take 24 hours. And that's not all. Normal when you do this, the various airlines cooperate, so I just check my bags where I start and get them where I end up. I don't have to recheck my bags, I don't have to do anything like that. I'm flying from Atlanta to New York, to Oslo, and then to Stockholm, and I have to recheck my bags both in New York and in Oslo, which means I have to go through immigration in New York just so that I can pick up my bags and check the bag and then go through security and back out into the international portion of the airport. The good part about that, if you can call it good, is that I have like 6 or 7 hours of waiting to do between the 2 flights. So going through that process should hopefully not be a problem. But this feels so insane. One part of me wish obviously that I could continue to Katahdin, but the desire to reach Katahdin is not there the way it was previously. When I told my mother that I was coming home, she was jubilant. She has worried, but she isn't worried any longer. And with some extra time in Atlanta, I went to see a couple of new movies, and why don't you guess in the comments down below which movies I went to see. But life is good, I feel healthy, it's good to spend some time. I hiked 105 miles on the Appalachian Trail. I crossed Blood Mountain. I saw the fire tower on top of Albert Mountain. 100 miles, yay! And I felt I did good. It could have been better, I could have been better prepared. But we can talk about that in a later video. Keep on trekking!